The sky above the battlefield was dark with smoke and dust. Broken towers and shattered walls stretched as far as the eye could see. For centuries, this place had been fought over by armies and warriors, but now it was silent. The only sound was the wind, whispering through the ruins, and the occasional distant roar of a creature no one dared approach. That creature was Kael'thar, the war dragon. He was enormous, bigger than any dragon anyone had ever seen, with scales that shone like metal and eyes that burned like fire. No warrior had ever been able to climb him. Not one. Stories of Kael'thar were told across the galaxy. Warriors would gather around campfires, drinking and boasting about their strength, and end every tale with the same warning: do not try to climb the war dragon. None can survive. Every warrior who tried had failed. Some fell broken. Some ran trembling. Some never returned at all. Kael'thar was not just big or strong, he was smart. He knew how to throw off anyone who thought they could tame him. His mind was sharp, his instincts deadly, and his temper feared. The warriors had stopped trying for a time, leaving Kael'thar alone in the ruins. He spent his days pacing among the broken towers, his claws cutting grooves into the stone, his wings stretching wide, casting huge shadows on the ground. His roars echoed across the battlefield, reminding everyone that he was still the master here. No human, no alien, no warrior of any kind could challenge him, not because they lacked weapons but because Kael'thar would not allow it. Among the scattered ruins, hidden behind a fallen wall, a human girl watched him. She was small and quiet, with long hair that fell over her shoulders. Her name was Lyra. She was not a warrior. She did not carry heavy armor or sharp weapons. She did not boast about her strength or try to prove herself. She only watched. She saw what the other warriors could not see. They only saw a monster, a creature to fight and conquer. Lyra saw something different. She saw the dragon's movements, the way he breathed, the way his tail twitched, and the scars on his scales. Kael'thar had many scars. Old wounds ran across his wings, jagged lines that glowed faintly under his scales. His chest bore marks of old battles. Lyra noticed these scars carefully. She wondered how they had happened, who had made them, and how they hurt the dragon. While other humans ran away or tried to fight him, she stayed hidden, studying him quietly. She did not want to climb him. She did not want to ride him. She wanted to understand him. The other warriors would laugh if they saw her now. They would call her weak. "Step back, girl. You can't even lift a sword," they would shout. But Lyra ignored them. She had learned long ago that strength was not always in arms or armor. Sometimes strength was in patience, in observation, in courage that was quiet but steady. Days passed as Lyra watched Kael'thar. She learned when he hunted and when he rested. She learned which ruins he liked to sleep in and which parts of the battlefield he avoided. She even noticed small habits: the way he dipped his head when he was thinking, the way he sniffed the air when danger was near. No warrior had ever taken the time to observe him like this. They only saw a challenge, a test of strength. Lyra saw a living being with pain and memory and pride. One afternoon, Kael'thar landed near the center of the ruins. The ground shook with every step. Dust rose like a cloud around him. He lowered his massive head to inspect a broken pillar. His claws scraped the stone. His wings twitched. Even from a distance, Lyra could see the tension in his muscles, the sharpness in his eyes. She knew other warriors would rush forward, shouting, trying to climb him. But she did not move. She only watched. Something strange happened. Kael'thar paused and looked straight at the spot where Lyra crouched behind a wall. For a moment, his eyes seemed softer, almost curious. He sniffed the air, and though his gaze was fierce, he did not roar. He did not attack. Lyra held her breath. She did not move and she did not show fear. She only stayed very still, letting him see that she was not a threat. And then, for the first time, something changed. Kael'thar did not turn away. He did not fly off. He simply watched, tilting his great head as if trying to understand this tiny, quiet human girl who did not run, did not shout, did not try to conquer him. In that moment, Lyra felt something she had never felt before: hope. If a dragon like Kael'thar could notice her, if he could see her without anger, maybe there was a chance. A chance not to fight but to connect. She did not know what would happen next. She only knew that no warrior had ever seen the dragon this way. No warrior had ever tried to understand him. And maybe, just maybe, a quiet human girl could do what no one else could. Lyra spent the next few days moving carefully through the ruins. She stayed out of sight of the other warriors, who still tried to impress Kael'thar with shouts, swords, and daring moves. But the dragon ignored them, swiping at them with his tail or sending a burst of fire into the air. He was too powerful for any human to approach by force. Lyra, however, watched quietly, waiting for the right moment. She wanted to get closer, not to climb but to understand. From her hiding place she saw Kael'thar land near a broken tower, the sun glinting off his scales. As he shifted, Lyra noticed something that made her heart ache. His chest was covered in scars, old, jagged and deep. His wings, though massive and strong, were not perfect either. She could see marks where the skin had healed unevenly, some areas still raw and tender. No warrior had ever paused to notice these wounds. They only saw strength, fire and danger. Lyra saw pain. She remembered her mother telling her that every scar has a story. Lyra wondered about Kael'thar's scars. How many battles had he fought? How many had he survived? Did it hurt him every time he stretched his wings or moved across the battlefield? She felt a strange connection to him, not fear, not anger, but pity and curiosity mixed with respect. That evening, as the sun began to set, Lyra crept a little closer. She moved slowly, keeping low to the ground, careful not to make a sound. Kael'thar was resting, his huge body curled among the ruins. The warriors were nowhere near. He was alone. Lyra could see his chest rise and fall with each breath, and she noticed the way his eyes flicked open, even in sleep, alert to every movement around him. He was cautious. He had learned long ago that humans could be dangerous. Lyra reached into her small pack and pulled out a clean cloth and some water. She had prepared herself to help, though she was not sure how a human could do much for a dragon so large and powerful. She moved closer, staying low and speaking softly to herself so she would not startle him. "It's okay," she whispered. "I won't hurt you. I just want to help." Kael'thar stirred, lifting his head slightly. Lyra froze. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and for a moment she thought he would attack. But instead he tilted his head, watching her. Slowly, carefully, she stood a little taller and extended her hand toward him. The dragon flinched, moving back, but he did not roar or strike. He was curious. He had never had a human approach like this. Lyra knelt beside him and examined one of the scars on his chest. It was deep and old, but the skin around it was irritated and raw. She dipped the cloth in the water and gently wiped away the dirt and dust. Kael'thar flinched again, but this time he did not move away. Lyra whispered softly, telling him it would not hurt. She did not rush. She worked slowly, with care, feeling the weight of the moment. As she cleaned the wound, Lyra noticed the other scars on his wings. Some were long, stretching from the shoulder to the tip, jagged lines that told of past battles. She could see dried blood in some areas, evidence of injuries that had healed poorly. The dragon's skin was thick and tough, but it was also sensitive. Lyra's heart beat faster as she realized just how much he must have suffered. 4 hours she stayed with him, moving from one wound to the next, talking softly, offering calm words and gentle touches. Kael'thar remained still, watching her, allowing her to work. The other warriors were nowhere near. They had no idea what was happening. To them, dragons were beasts to fight or tame. But Lyra knew this was something different. She was not trying to fight him. She was not trying to climb him. She was trying to heal him. By the time night fell, Kael'thar had lowered his massive head closer to her. Lyra looked up and saw his glowing eyes, soft now, watching her with something like trust. She did not move away. She kept working, cleaning and dressing the wounds as best she could with the simple tools she had brought. It was not much, but it was something. And Kael'thar seemed to understand that. Lyra felt a strange joy, the kind that comes from helping someone who cannot speak, someone who cannot thank you. She whispered stories of her own life, of small victories and quiet courage. The dragon seemed to listen, his massive body relaxed around her, his breath warm but calm. For the first time, he allowed himself to be vulnerable in front of a human. From a distance, the ruins were silent. The wind blew through broken towers, carrying the faint sound of her voice to no one but Kael'thar. He had been alone for so long, feared by warriors and humans alike. But now, for the first time, he was not alone. He was not just a war dragon. He was a being who had someone care for his wounds, someone who saw his pain, and someone who did not try to take advantage of his strength. Lyra stayed until the moon rose high in the sky, bathing the battlefield in pale silver light. When she finally stepped back, Kael'thar did not move away. He watched her, his eyes glowing softly as if understanding that she meant no harm. She smiled quietly, feeling that first spark of connection. She knew this was only the beginning. No warrior had ever reached him like this, and maybe, just maybe, a quiet human girl could do what no one else had. For the first time, Kael'thar felt a strange warmth, a trust he had never known. And Lyra felt hope, a hope that she could bridge the gap between dragon and human, not with strength or weapons but with care and courage. The morning sun rose over the battlefield, casting a soft golden light on the broken towers and dusty ground. Lyra arrived quietly, moving through the ruins with the same careful steps as before. Kael'thar was already awake, sitting among the rubble with his massive wings folded neatly at his sides. He lifted his head as she approached, his glowing eyes following her every movement. She did not run, she did not shout, and she did not carry weapons. She simply walked slowly, keeping her hands visible and her movements calm. For a moment, Kael'thar watched her, silent and still. He had never had a human approach like this, not a warrior, not an enemy, not a spy. This human girl was different. There was no fear in her eyes, no anger, no desire to conquer. She only wanted to be near him. She wanted to understand him. That was something no one had ever offered before. Lyra stopped a few feet away and knelt on the ground. "Good morning, Kael'thar," she whispered softly. Her voice was calm and gentle, carrying across the quiet ruins. "I have come to see how you are. Can I help you today?" Kael'thar tilted his head slightly, watching her. His large nostrils flared as he sniffed the air, unsure what to make of her. But he did not roar. He did not move away. He only blinked slowly, his massive body trembling slightly with the effort of keeping still. Lyra smiled faintly and reached out her hand. "I just want to touch your wounds," she said. "I want to help." For a moment, Kael'thar flinched. His tail lashed once and his wings twitched. But he did not leave. He did not attack. He only watched. Lyra took a slow, careful step forward, keeping her voice soft and steady. "It will not hurt," she said. "I promise." She reached out to his chest first, where the scars were deepest. Kael'thar flinched again but stayed where he was. His glowing eyes narrowed, watching her carefully. Lyra dipped her hand into a small water container she had brought and gently cleaned the dirt from one of the jagged scars. Kael'thar exhaled slowly, a low rumble vibrating from his throat. It was not a roar. It was not a warning. It was curiosity. Lyra whispered to him softly, telling him that the world was not always dangerous, that not every human would try to hurt him. She worked slowly, never touching him roughly, never moving too fast. Kael'thar tilted his head, letting her clean a larger wound near his wing. She saw how sensitive the skin was, how easily it could be hurt again, and she treated it carefully, pressing only lightly, making sure not to cause pain. Hours passed. Lyra moved from one wound to another, cleaning, brushing away dirt, and talking softly. She told stories of her own life, small victories, moments of courage, and quiet choices that had helped her survive in a world that often felt too big for her. Kael'thar listened in his own way, shifting slightly but never moving away. He let her stay near him, let her touch his wounds, let her show care for him in ways no warrior ever had. At one point, a group of warriors arrived, thinking they could finally take the dragon. They shouted and waved their swords, trying to scare him. Kael'thar rose instantly, wings spreading wide, roaring a sound so loud it shook the ruins. But instead of flying away or attacking the girl, he positioned his massive body between Lyra and the warriors. His eyes glowed with warning. The warriors froze, seeing that the dragon would not let anyone near her. Lyra stayed calm, her voice still soft. "It is okay," she said, not to the warriors but to Kael'thar. He lowered his head slightly, acknowledging her words. After the warriors ran off, Kael'thar sat back down, exhausted but calm. Lyra continued her work, brushing over a particularly long scar that ran across his side. She whispered encouragements, telling him he was strong, he was brave, and he did not need to be alone anymore. Kael'thar shifted closer to her, almost leaning into her hands. It was a sign of trust, a sign he had never given to any human before. As the day passed, the bond between them grew stronger. Kael'thar's massive body relaxed, his tail no longer lashed, his wings no longer twitched with tension. He allowed Lyra to move around him, to clean his wounds, and even to inspect areas he could have easily struck her if he wanted. It was the first real connection he had ever made with a human, and he seemed to understand that her intentions were pure. By the time the sun began to set, painting the ruins in orange and pink, Lyra stepped back for the first time. Kael'thar did not move. He simply watched her with glowing eyes, a silent acknowledgement of what had passed between them. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Thank you for trusting me." For the first time in centuries, Kael'thar had allowed a human to touch him, to care for him, to see him as more than just a weapon or a beast of war. And for the first time, Lyra felt that hope she had carried quietly all these days was real. The impossible had begun. She had reached the war dragon, not with force or bravery in battle, but with kindness, patience, and care. And Kael'thar, the fearsome war dragon who no warrior could climb, had finally allowed someone to come close. The next morning, Lyra returned to the ruins with a quiet determination. Kael'thar was already there, sitting tall among the broken stones. His massive wings were folded neatly, and his eyes followed her as she approached. This time there was no flinch, no twitch of the tail. He had grown used to her presence, or perhaps he had begun to trust her. Lyra's heart beat faster, but she kept her voice soft and her movements slow, letting him decide how close he wanted her to be. "Good morning, Kael'thar," she said softly, kneeling on the ground a few feet away. "I brought some water for your wounds and a little food. You don't have to be afraid of me." Kael'thar sniffed the air, his glowing eyes scanning her carefully. For a moment she thought he would turn away, but instead, he lowered his massive head slightly, almost as if inviting her closer. Lyra smiled quietly. She had learned long ago that strength was not in force, but in patience, in understanding, and in small, steady steps. She reached out her hand slowly and touched the largest scar along his wing. Kael'thar flinched just slightly, but he stayed still. "You have fought so many battles," Lyra whispered. "You have survived so much. I can see it in your scars. You're strong, Kael'thar, stronger than anyone I've ever met." The dragon tilted his head as if he understood her words. He exhaled slowly and a soft rumble vibrated from his chest. It was not a roar. It was not a warning. It was a sound that felt like acknowledgement, like agreement. Lyra worked quietly, cleaning the dried dirt and blood from his wounds and bandaging them with the simple materials she had brought. She did not rush. She did not force him to do anything. She only cared. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the occasional soft rumble from Kael'thar or the gentle rustle of Lyra's hands on his scales. She told him stories of her own life, of small acts of courage, of quiet victories, and of losses she had survived. She told him about the humans who never gave up, even when the world seemed too big for them. The dragon listened, tilting his massive head, shifting slightly closer, and even lowering one wing so she could clean a particularly jagged scar. For the first time, Kael'thar was not just a war machine. He was a being with memory, with pain, with understanding. And for the first time he was not alone. Lyra had become someone he allowed to see his vulnerability, someone he allowed to care for him. It was a bond no warrior had ever formed. They had tried to climb him, to control him, to prove their strength. Lyra had only offered care, and it had worked in a way that no force could. As the sun reached its highest point, the other warriors returned. They had been watching from a distance, curious and suspicious. They saw Lyra kneeling by the dragon, touching him, cleaning his wounds, speaking softly, and they laughed at first. "She's crazy," one shouted. "A human girl trying to calm a war dragon? She'll be dead before noon." Kael'thar rose instantly, spreading his massive wings wide. The ground shook with every step he took. He roared, a sound that echoed across the ruins and made the warriors freeze in fear. But instead of attacking Lyra, he positioned his massive body between her and the warriors. His eyes glowed with warning. The humans froze. Kael'thar had chosen to protect her, not himself, not them. Lyra remained calm. She did not raise her hands, she did not shout. She spoke softly to Kael'thar, "It's okay. They cannot hurt us. You know that." The dragon exhaled slowly and lowered his head slightly. The warriors, realizing they could not reach her without angering the dragon, backed away, muttering and grumbling, unsure what they had just witnessed. Once the warriors left, Kael'thar lay back down, lowering his wings and tail. Lyra continued her work, moving carefully along the wounds, brushing away dirt and whispering soft encouragements. "You are brave, Kael'thar. You have survived so much, and now you are not alone." By evening, the bond between them had grown even stronger. Kael'thar allowed her to move closer, to inspect deeper scars and to talk to him without fear. He lowered his massive head, brushing gently against her shoulder. Lyra smiled, her heart swelling with hope. She had not only reached him, but she had touched his mind and heart in a way no one else ever had. For the first time in centuries, Kael'thar had someone he trusted completely. And for the first time, Lyra felt that their bond could overcome anything, not armies, not warriors, not fear. She understood something important. Strength is not always about power or weapons. Sometimes strength is quiet, gentle, and steady. It is in patience. It is in care. And it is in trust. Night fell over the battlefield, painting the ruins in silver moonlight. Lyra sat near the dragon looking up at the stars. Kael'thar's glowing eyes watched her in return, a silent promise that he would not leave her side. The bond between them was unspoken but unbreakable. Lyra had done what no warrior could do. She had reached the heart of the war dragon. And in that quiet moment, both human and dragon understood something powerful. Together they were stronger than anything that could threaten them. The impossible had begun and nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, a strange hum filled the sky above the ruins. Lyra looked up and saw the alien ships approaching. They were sleek, dark, and enormous, moving with deadly speed. Warriors had gathered near the edges of the battlefield, shouting orders and waving weapons, thinking they could fight the invaders. But Lyra knew the truth. Even the strongest warriors alone could not stop these creatures. The only chance was Kael'thar. She approached him quietly, walking between the broken towers. "Kael'thar," she whispered, placing a gentle hand on his massive leg. "They're coming. But we can stop them, together." The dragon tilted his head, his glowing eyes meeting hers. He understood. He had trusted her. He had allowed her to see him, to care for him. Now he would follow her lead. Lyra climbed onto Kael'thar's back, not with fear but with calm confidence. She did not grasp him tightly. She did not shout commands. She simply sat and touched his scales gently, showing him that she was there, not as a master but as a partner. Kael'thar lowered his wings, flexing them slowly. Then, with a powerful push, he took off into the sky, lifting both of them high above the battlefield. The alien ships had already begun their attack. Beams of light shot across the ruins, destroying walls and scattering soldiers. Kael'thar roared, a deep, powerful sound that echoed through the air and struck fear into the invaders. He swooped down, flames bursting from his mouth, lighting the sky with fire. The aliens were fast, but Kael'thar was faster, twisting and diving with grace despite his enormous size. Lyra pointed toward clusters of ships, directing him with simple, quiet gestures. The aliens tried to target her, thinking a human on the dragon's back would distract him. But Kael'thar moved as if he understood her completely. He dodged, struck, and roared with precision, following her lead without question. It was not brute force alone that won the fight, it was trust, communication, and partnership. The other warriors watched in awe from below, unable to believe what they were seeing. The war dragon, once untouchable and feared by everyone, was now controlled not by chains or swords, but by the quiet guidance of a human girl. Hours passed as they battled. Kael'thar's wings grew tired, his muscles ached from the weight and strain, but Lyra whispered encouragement, brushing his scales when she could reach them and directing him calmly. The aliens began to fall back, one by one, unable to match the power and coordination of this unlikely duo. Lyra felt a thrill in her chest, not fear, not pride, but joy at seeing Kael'thar safe and powerful, fighting with trust rather than anger. Finally, the last of the alien ships broke apart in the sky. Smoke and fire filled the air, but the battlefield was quiet again. Kael'thar landed gently among the ruins, his wings folding neatly around him. Lyra slid from his back and knelt beside him, placing a hand on his massive chest. He lowered his head, nudging her shoulder softly. She smiled. The other warriors approached slowly, their mouths open in disbelief. They had tried to climb him, to fight him, to dominate him, and had failed. But a quiet human girl, gentle and patient, had not only calmed him but had helped him fight, and win, against an enemy no one else could have faced. Lyra stood and looked up at Kael'thar. "You see," she whispered, "strength is not just about power. It's about trust. It's about courage. And sometimes it's about caring." Kael'thar's eyes glowed softly as if he understood every word. No roar, no fire, no gesture could say what his eyes now said clearly. He trusted her completely. The galaxy would never forget this day. Tales would be told, but they would not tell of the warriors who failed. They would tell of the human girl who reached the war dragon, who healed his wounds, who rode him not with force but with understanding. Humanity had shown its true strength, not in weapons or armor but in compassion, patience, and courage. Night fell over the battlefield. Lyra sat beside Kael'thar, brushing dirt from a healed scar. His massive body pressed lightly against hers, a silent comfort. Above them, stars sparkled in the sky, reflecting the bond they had formed. They had survived together, fought together, and won together. No one would ever climb Kael'thar like the old warriors had tried, but that was not important anymore. What mattered was trust, understanding, and the quiet courage of a human heart. Lyra looked at the dragon and Kael'thar looked at her. In their eyes there was a promise. They would face whatever came next, not as master and beast, not as human and dragon, but as partners, friends, and equals. Together they were stronger than any enemy, greater than any legend. The war dragon had finally found someone who could reach him, not with strength but with heart. And in that quiet moment, the battlefield was no longer a place of fear. It was a place of hope. A place where humanity and dragons could stand together, unbroken, unstoppable, and unafraid.